Well, hello and welcome to the e-commerce podcast. My name is Matt Edmondson and I'm your host for this conversation. Oh, excuse me, I can hear myself twice in my head, so that's never good. Professional show. So welcome to the show. Sorry if you heard that twice. This is a show all about helping you deliver e-commerce wow. And to help us do just that, I'm chatting with Eagan Heath from Caravan Digital, which I think is probably one of the coolest names for a company I've heard for a long time. We are going to be talking about e-commerce marketing, funnel marketing. We're going to get into the whole thing, basically. It's good. It's going to be good. Now, before we get into it, though, let me just remind you, if you haven't done so already, to sign up to the newsletter. Just head over to the website, ecommercepodcast.net, put in your name and email address, and we will send you the newsletter every week with all the links and the notes from the show. So the conversation we're about to have, if you sign up to the newsletter, all comes to your inbox automatically. It's a beautiful thing, let me tell you. Now, today's show is brought to you by eCommerce Cohort, which is our monthly mastermind group. Why not come join us? It's a membership group. You come in every month. We'll get in experts to come and teach on all the aspects of e-commerce. You can work alongside the lessons, do what we do, and just have some fun in there. Plus, you also get to see the live recording of this podcast. You get to ask questions direct to the guests, which is just awesome. So yeah, come along to Cohort, ecommercecohort.com for more information. That's ecommercecohort.com. We would love to see you in there, most definitely. And of course, if you're new to the show, a very, very warm welcome to you. Now, let's talk about Mr. Eagan Heath, the mastermind behind Get Found Madison and Caravan Digital, who's been turning online traffic into treasure since 2016. Oh yes. He's not just a digital marketing guru. Oh no, he's also the brain behind the innovative My Digital Marketing Mastery course and the former captain of the quirky pet portrait ship, Splendid Beast. I've no idea either, but we'll find out. I catch him sharing his e-commerce expertise on the What's Working in E-commerce show, where he leads the digital waves with tips and tales. Oh yes, it's good to be talking to a fellow podcaster. Eagan, welcome to the show, man. Been looking forward to this. How are you doing today, sir?
Great. Even better after that intro. Thank you, Matt.
Dude, you've got to explain the quirky pet portrait ship, Splendid Beast.
That's right. Yeah. So I also had an e-commerce business. It's called Splendid Beast. You can check it out at splendidbeast.com.
Mm-hmm.
I purchased it from a friend. I grew it a bit and I sold it actually during the pandemic to focus on my agency. But basically, Splendid Beast does custom oil pet portraits of your dog, cat, whatever you have, and any way you want. And so you want your dog as Winston Churchill. You want your cat as Emily Dickinson, whatever you want, you can do it. And they're actual handmade oil portraits, and they take a little while to paint, and then they actually have to dry, and we ship them to you. And you can see a couple behind me. You can see this cat is the Maharashi behind me. We also have Gizmo, the owner's, the founder's pet dog, as a professor, and he's got a little necktie and things like that. So it was a very fun business. I had a lot of fun with it. I learned a lot, and oftentimes clients are glad to know I've run an e-commerce business myself too.
We'll stick on that point for a little bit, but then I've got some more questions about the pet thing. I'm not going to lie, we're going to get onto that. One of the things that I've always found quite fascinating about e-commerce is the amount of gurus in the world who claim to know stuff, but don't actually run their own e-commerce business. And I've always found that quite fascinating. Like you, I thought, I actually was an e-commerce entrepreneur before I did the agency thing and before I did the whole coaching thing. And in fact, all the coaching came out of what we learned in e-commerce. And that always was one of those things that clients really sort of warm to, really. And I always used to say, I still say, because I don't know if you found this, Eagan, but a lot of people will go to, say, their web designer for help with e-commerce. It's like, something's not working, I'll go talk to my website guy. But that's a bit like going to a midwife and asking them for parenting advice, right? The midwife is very good at one particular part of the journey. Doesn't mean that they're good at everything else. And so, yeah, I'm intrigued by this. So I totally get it, actually. The fact that you do e-commerce, I imagine, is a big plus for your clients.
Yep. Yeah. And I think that's right. I think I always like the comparison also to, I don't know what you guys say in the UK, but here in the US, it's sort of like when you physically build a house or a building or, anything, it's like you've got the general contractor who's kind of overseeing all the subcontractors or contractors underneath, and somebody's got to do the electrical, somebody's got to do the plumbing, somebody's got to do all these pieces. And so it makes sense from the client's perspective that they don't know about all the stuff that happens behind the scenes, that they maybe had one place build their Shopify site or something like that. But now we need to get people to that site. We need to get people buying. Those are separate skills. And, that makes sense to us. We know that from being in the game for a number of years. But if you're brand new and you're just trying to get some products online or just starting to sell, that can be news to you sometimes. And so there are separate sub skills within this world, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That's intriguing, fascinating. And I'm curious though, what made you buy a pet portrait business from your friend? Because I don't know. I'm just, in all the times I've sat here and thought, what e-commerce business shall I do next? It never came up to paint pets with oil paintings. So I'm kind of curious, what was it that drew you in?
Yeah, great question. So I had started life, you mentioned Get Found Madison. We're based out of Madison, Wisconsin. It really started as a local SEO and Google Ads agency. So a lot of our clients are still based out of here in the upper Midwest in the United States. And so I really knew that piece about keyword research, on-site optimization, running pay-per-click ads. And I had talked with my friend Ben, who started Splendid Beast, and he was kind of looking to get out of it, and he was even just going to shut it down. And I said, there's really more opportunity here. And in particular, I'd done the keyword research. And at the time, this was a number of years ago, it was in the US alone, it was like dog paintings was searched 4,400 times a month. Cat paintings, thousands of times, and then variations on each of those thousands and thousands of times. And at the time, it was a site, I believe, on, was it Weebly? Do you remember that one?
Oh,
this
yeah.
was so it wasn't on WordPress, wasn't on Shopify or anything like that. And I said, boy, there's a lot of opportunity here. So first thing I did was, we updated it in terms of on WooCommerce, and then we built out pages for dog painting, cat painting, pet portrait, everything like that. And for a little while there, we were number one in the US for dog paintings. We got a lot of traffic that way. So I kind of saw the demand that we could tap into, where my friend who'd started it, was really on the design side. He kind of did the photoshopping and things like that and had the relationships with the painters. But I sort of had that marketing mind. And, it's like anyone who buys a business, it's like you see something that maybe the current owner doesn't see, and you think you can take it to the next level. Did for a while, had a lot of fun with it, and realized that my agency was requiring so much time that I kind of had to choose one or the other during COVID, and it was sad to let it go. I'm bittersweet about it, but basically the guy who was operating it for me took it over, had him trained on everything, and we're still great friends.
Wow, what a great story! And it's interesting that you talk about doing keyword research before buying the business. Because one of the questions I get asked a lot, right, is if I'm going to set up an e-commerce business, what product should I sell? How do I know what's a good product to sell? Would you still advocate for that today? As in, if I'm thinking of setting up an e-commerce business, I have a product idea, would you then go and do the keyword research to find the demand of that? And how would you correlate that to the competition behind that keyword?
Yeah, great questions. I think that's part of what I think we're talking about today too, with the full funnel marketing and strategy and everything like that. I think it depends on what you're selling, depends on kind of which way you want to take things. But to me, I always want to know that piece. And it's sort of this world of everything's amazing and nobody cares. Like, we forgot how special it is to be able to do that keyword research. We kind of take it for granted, but you and I have lived long enough. Like, we remember the days of, the phone book and things like that, of you knew there was a phone book, you knew you could put your business in it. You didn't know how many times a month people opened it up and looked for businesses like yours. Now we have at least some idea about that directionally. And so if we're tapping into any sort of demand, if we're selling a product that's something people already look for, I think it behooves you to know that. And I think if I did it now, I would want to know the Amazon traffic as well. So I think it's just getting a sense of understanding that's those are the head terms: dog painting, cat painting, pet portrait. those are kind of the tip of the iceberg. And then there's going to be all these others. And I went down the list, and it got so specific. It was like French bulldog painting. Like that's got a couple hundred searches per month. And then one of our first sales I got when I took it over was a Bichon Frise painting. And I had to look that up. I didn't, my wife loves dogs. We don't have a dog. So I was like, what is that? People are looking for their breed of a painting. And I saw it in the PPC Google ads reporting, basically, that someone searched that phrase and you could clicked and bought. Like that was one of our first conversions on Google ads. And I said, wow, there's really something here. And the old owner, my good friend Ben, he didn't think like that. He didn't have that training, those skills. And so to even go down that route. And so we started to we had a rat painting page. We had we had Boston Terrier page. It's like all those top breeds, like we went down the list, and it's like, as crazy as it seems, as niche as it seems, someone is searching for, a page, paintings of bulldogs and of their bulldogs. Sometimes it's paint my dog and things like that. And so I think anytime you're tapping into existing demand, you want to know what that search volume is. Now, you also mentioned the competition. That's a good point. SEO tools like Ahrefs or SEMrush or others, can help you estimate how competitive that's going to be. I know there's Helium 10 and others on Amazon where you can kind of do similar work. I think it's good to know that too, of how competitive is it. But even just a rough and ready sort of way to check for competition is you search those phrases, you do it incognito or in private browsing mode. How many ads do you see, right? Do you see the Google Shopping ads appearing? Do you see search ads at the top? You can get a sense right there. If people are advertising on this, either everybody in the industry is incompetent and they're advertising on a keyword that doesn't convert, or there's information here in the market, right? So right on that search page, I think there's information we can be learning from about how competitive is this. And we know it's an auction. We're gonna be paying more per click if I see a lot of other ads there. And if there's no ads at all on a phrase, maybe there's not a lot of commercial intent here.
Yeah. It's one of those, isn't it? I think there are very few phrases that are undiscovered, for want of a better expression, and we always, every now and again, you come across something and think, oh, this is going to rock everybody's world. And there's a reason why it is what it is. But if you were starting again today, or I came to your agency, to Caravan Digital, and I said, Eagan, listen, but my wife enjoys painting pets, so I'm going to set up a pet painting business. Is that, I guess, how would you, with the full funnel marketing sort of thing that we're going to get into, how would I approach this? Because I imagine it's a lot more competitive now than when you took over from your friend. So getting ranked SEO wise is going to be complex. Google Ads is going to be a little bit more expensive, I'm thinking. So, where would you go with that?
Yeah, that's great. And maybe it's a good time to get into that. I think there is an element of the customer persona. Probably the listeners or viewers have heard that. Is that something you guys do at your agency?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm a big fan of understanding the customer. Yeah. Oh, geez. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So we actually put a face to a name. We create a composite person. I can share and pull some up if we want to see some and look through some. But it's literally, who are we talking about? Who are we selling to? It's like, who are we serving? I think it really starts there. And from there, it's, what do they want? What are their aspirations? What are their goals? What are their pain points? Who are we talking about? Let's put a picture. Let's put a name on it. Let's make this a real person with a real age, a real city, a real income. Let's flesh it out and then think about, where are they? Where do they spend time? Where can we catch their attention is part of it. But it's also, what sort of messaging and creative do they need to see? What's going to speak to them at each of those levels? And so somebody who is, maybe they're on TikTok, maybe they're on Instagram, and they've never even thought, I could get a funny painting of my dog, or I could create, it's like they would need to see examples. And that was, this was an interesting example for me, Matt. When I first bought the business, I was obviously showing people, hey, check out the site, splendidbeast.com, check it out. And it was the old site before we redid it. And a good friend of mine who's a marketer browsed through it, and she goes, what am I looking at? And it was, it was pictures of paintings, but it was on a computer and it was kind of zoomed in just to the painting. And so she thought, are these Photoshopped images themselves? Is this art? What do I do? And so immediately I got the idea, okay, we need to have people standing next to their pets.
Yeah.
So we can see it. Or we need the pet right next to the painting so that people can understand immediately this is this pet, right? And this is a painting you get of the pet. Is it okay if I share a screen here and show this for a second?
Let me bring that on. Yeah. So if you're watching the video, we're looking at a screen. So maybe just talk us through what we're seeing as well, Eagan, for those that are just listening.
Yeah. Can you hear this? I'm splendidbeast.com. Again, this is my former business. And it's like, based on that learning from my friend Helen, it was like, okay, we used to have, it was just this painting zoomed in and you couldn't even tell it was a painting because people see all kinds of images online. They don't know this is a handmade oil painting, right? And then we also need to understand it's this dog. And so online on splendidbeast.com now, we've got pictures of pets, right? So we've got this cat, and then we've got the cat as the famous Van Gogh self-portrait, right, with its ear cut off. And so we can at least understand a little better, this is my specific cat, and then this is a painting like this, right?
Yeah.
And so same story, there's all kinds of different types. I can have my dog in Star Trek, and if I can see, at least get a sense of, here's a pet, here's a specific pet, here's a portrait, and I can kind of see this is actually on the wall. Some of these have frames and things like that. And then people actually, this is great if you can get, user-generated content of people posting it. Here's my cat painted as an astronaut. Here's a smiling face. It's just much more immediate like that. So going back to your question was, where do we start? Well, there might be quirky people who have certain interests. Like obviously they love their pets. That's going to be a huge part of their persona, right? And then there's some sort of quirky sense of humor where they wouldn't be embarrassed having this up in their house. They would be proud. They would show their friends and family. They would even post on Instagram to say, this is something they would do, right? So it's sort of like we're getting a sense of what type of quirky person would pay for a painting like this. Where can we reach them? And immediately we understand a little better. If we just had, here's a cat in an astronaut costume, it's like, we may not understand, you can actually do this for your cat and hang it on the wall, right? And so it's like that sort of thought. Now we could top a funnel. Someone who's never even thought to search cat astronaut painting can get the idea planted in their head, and they can be looking at their cat thinking, what does my cat's personality match? Or my dog, how would I have them painted? So I think it's that sort of idea of, where can we find them? Where are they hanging out? If they're totally top of funnel, didn't even know this was something they could ever purchase in the world, or commission, as we say, right? And so where are they hanging out? Where can we even get them aware of it? And then how do we make it like very immediate so it speaks to them? And so we kind of went through anywhere on Instagram where people had tagged us, that user-generated content, that UGC was extremely valuable and much better than any pictures that my old friend Ben had zoomed in, nice quality of a painting, but we couldn't tell at a distance that it was a painting. Sorry if I went on too long about that, Matt, but that's sort of how I think about it.
Yeah, no, it's really good. And I as I was looking at the images there on the website, the one thing that I sort of noticed about the images, as soon as you add the pet and you give it context, you're actually showing in some respects, the transformation. It felt a bit like a before and after photo. Do you know what I mean? Yes. This is what I was, and then I lost 75 pounds in 2 weeks, and this is what I am now. Those kind of shots which show transformation. And they're really, really powerful because it actually tells the story, doesn't it, of where you are and where it could be. And I can imagine, actually, if you're just zoomed in on the painting, if the paintings are any good, you could easily go, what is it? It's just an image of a dog? I don't quite understand. So I see, and I'm imagining, actually, the conversion went up as soon as you did that.
Yeah, certainly we were tracking conversion rate, everything like that. But even just the understanding, if someone's scrolling through Facebook or Instagram or wherever on social media, they might see this. I need it to, we got to stop the thumb, right?
Yeah.
And in general, if they're social media, I'm kind of thinking in many cases that's top of funnel. Back in the day, we could remarket a little better. But as it stands, it's like with iOS 14 and the Pixel and everything like that, we really almost need to think of Meta as a top of funnel, or many of these paid social platforms as top of funnel. People have never heard of us. They don't know us from Adam, and we need to grab them quickly, and they need to understand quickly what this is. And even there's an implied sense of, why would I want this? And so for people who there's probably most people on the planet would never buy one of these, right?
Yeah.
I've got a dog, or my wife's got a dog, and I would certainly never commission to have it painted, right? And even if I did, I wouldn't make some goofy thing and have it Winston Churchill. But there is some subset that would, and it's like, that's who we want to grab, and we want them to understand immediately and start checking out and start thinking through that process. Mm-hmm. You know, and you can imagine some people have multiple pets, and they would get one for each pet, and they would, if we've got whole galleries of, I've got 3 to 5 dogs, and all of them have their own Splendid Beast on the wall, and they send us pictures of all of them sitting on the couch below their paintings. So it's that immediacy of, why on earth would I want this? What is it? And, you know, how can I get one? And it's for the right people that's going to land.
Yeah, very good. Very, very good. And I love how you use the imagery to tell that story. And to grab people's attention. I assume you did it with video as well, you know, on Meta.
Yeah, that's good. And I should say on YouTube as well. And we had so what we would do is another thing, talking through what, you know, how do we get started? When I took over this business, I went through and said, again, Ben, previous owner, what do we got for an email list? He goes, email, what's that? I said, all right, we're going to grab we're going to grab all the previous customers. I'm going to put them into, at the time, MailChimp, because we were just getting started, right? Later on Klaviyo. And first thing we did was, you get a free painting if you send us pictures of your, like, not everybody, but like, we're going to do a contest, and you're going to win a free Splendid Beast gift card or what have you. Send us a picture of you with the pet, with the painting, if possible, if they're still alive, right? And that was the whole thing of people memorializing their pets and things like that. So very first thing we did was new email list. Here's a giveaway, right? Enter to win a giveaway. If you like this quirky thing already, chances are you like it again. You can give it as a gift, or you can get your other pet painted this way. And as soon as we did that, we solicited a bunch of user-generated content that we could then use in the marketing, put on the site, put in the ads, put in the emails. So that's kind of that piece, getting to that bottom of funnel. They already bought from us. They already have one. Why did we disappear, right? If it's like the hardest thing, you know, Matt, is to get a new customer, it's time to sell them another thing. It's a gift card for another one. It's a gift card for someone else. It's that, you know, credit toward their next pet painting or whatever it is. We got to keep them engaged. And so that was a huge win right out of the gates of new channel. Yes. But also we didn't hit them, here's a sale, come buy things right now. It was, let's get you guys re-engaged. Like, you bought this weird thing from this weird company. Who are you people? What's your story? And let's get you something free, or let's get you entered. And what I liked about the giveaway too is, you know, it's at cost for us. It's whatever it was for one painting, but it got people opening our emails, which they'd never seen before. Some people hadn't bought a painting in years, you know. So got our emails opened, but then also started a conversation with something free rather than, hey, here's a hard sell right away. Yeah. So I think that helped us too.
That's a really powerful tool, isn't it? In terms of how to instantly get a whole bunch of user-generated content, is just to give people something for free, or the possibility of getting something for free. And something valuable too, like what you've done there with another painting. People will love it. The cleverness in it is, the people that you want to produce the user-generated content are the passionate people. The passionate people are probably going to want another painting off you, and so they're going to, oh, I get a chance to win, and oh, I didn't win, I'll buy one anyway, because, you know, why not?
Yeah. And it's obvious to everybody watching this or listening to this is, you know, you get your products at cost, right? But other people receive the value over top of that. That's why they're giving you their money in exchange. What you're selling them is more valuable than that. So anytime you can do a giveaway like that, it's like you're putting value out into the world over and above what it costs you. And then if you can multiply it one to many with marketing, with, you know, you're getting testimonials, you're getting case studies, you're getting happy customers, you know, pictures of their faces with the product. That's invaluable, because you're going to then multiply that in all your marketing.
Yeah, and actually that and there's something quite clever about that as well. You know, we've always talked about this on the show, that actually a gift with purchase is often better than discount. So I can discount by 10%, and if your average order value is $100, well, that's a $10 discount. Whereas if I can find a gift with purchase, maybe it cost me $3, but the perceived value of that is, say, $27. Well, then I'm making more money by doing the gift with purchase, because I'm losing $3 rather than 10. But the customer's getting something of a much higher value. So instead of getting $10, they're getting 27, right?
Yeah, that's spot on. I'm gonna, if it's okay, man, I'm gonna pull up my presentation a little bit here.
Yeah, go for it, man.
I did a recent workshop basically about how to create a marketing strategy that actually drives results. And you're kind of reminding me of this slide here I created. It's just, what does strategy entail? This is me, and feel free. This is not the final word. I don't claim to be a guru, Matt. I'm here along with people trying to learn it. So we talked about our customer persona. Who are we marketing to? Who are we serving? What's the problem or aspiration addressed? How are we going to help them? Right. And by the way, with the pet paintings, just as an example, I know we can talk about other examples too, but it's sort of what is the problem addressed here? What is the aspiration? It's worth thinking through. And one thing we found was oftentimes a major use of these paintings was people wanted to memorialize their pet. So in many cases, we had to work from old photos because the pet's gone and they want to remember them. And so that's a use case into itself. Another one is just, we want to celebrate this weird animal. And when people come over to a party, like, we want to see it on the wall, right? So that's a separate use case, right? Yeah, you're talking about the offer. What are you selling? What's the price? Kind of what's entailed, right? And I think what you're saying, what we're agreeing about, Matt, is how do we make that offer more valuable?
Yes.
Throw in something else, right?
Yeah.
Of here's a way to maintain this. Here's what else you can do with this. Here's a free guide. Here's a free PDF. Here's a checklist. Here's a inexpensive gift on our end that's going to add value for you. Those are all ways to increase that average order value and increase the value that your customers receive, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And then obviously that's going to affect our messaging. One of the things I changed on the website right away was custom oil paintings of your pet, right? Before it was just sort of Splendid Beast, figure this out, right? Here's an image, good luck, right? And now it's get really clear. There's this whole element of competition. We can or cannot go into that today, right? Channels, where are we going to reach our prospect? We've talked a little bit about that. Are they already searching Google? If so, I would call that middle of funnel. If they don't even know this exists and we're running ads top of funnel on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, wherever, that's, I'm calling that top of funnel. They've never heard of us. And then bottom of funnel is they've heard of us, they've gotten on the email list, and now we're moving them along, right?
Yeah.
So each one has its place. I think there's time and or money to invest. You mentioned the SEO piece of the complexity around that. It's complex, it's difficult, it takes time. But if people are low on budget, it's like there's always organic strategies to work on, but they cost you time, right? So are you putting in the elbow grease? Are you putting in the sweat equity into your company with organic, or are you trying to go faster by running ads, right? So that's kind of the budget. There's obviously a measurement piece of this. We want to do direct response marketing, and that's the idea there. So I think there's more to this too. We could certainly add to this list. But Matt, I think, who's our customer persona? What's the problem or aspiration? What's our offer? I throw in what's the copywriting. We could also say what's the creative. We could say what's going to be in the images. We could say how are we different than the competition? What are the channels we're going to reach them at? We could talk more about the channels at different points: top of funnel, middle of funnel, bottom of funnel, and then kind of budget and measurement. I think we're starting to get a strategy once we have these pieces. What do you think?
I think it's a very comprehensive list, Eagan, and I think I love where you start and I love where you end with that. And I was very good. Very good. Where did you do that presentation?
So I do workshops here in Madison as well, and I'm often teaching other marketers or small business owners. There's a mix of e-commerce and other local businesses and things like that, and I absolutely love doing it. I think it's kind of engaging. We can kind of just be on our computers all day, crossing our eyes, looking at Google ads and looking at spreadsheets. So it's nice to get out and talk with other marketers and kind of bounce things off each other. And I always learn from them. And I think they get enough value out of it where they keep coming back. So I'm a huge fan of, if you like teaching, if you like this stuff, and you're an agency or you're a consultant, I think it's worth checking out because it sort of reinvigorates you if you like that sort of thing. So I kind of do the in-person workshop, and then I turn those into the online courses that people can buy as well. Yeah.
Brilliant. Do you, just switching tack very slightly at this point, you do your own podcast. We mentioned that at the start of the show. And that's how we met. I ended up on your podcast, and I'm very sorry about that. But we chatted about e-commerce. And I've I obviously connected to your show. A number of the guests that have been on your show have been on this show, and a whole bunch of people whose faces I don't recognize. One of the reasons I love doing this podcast, Eagan, and I'm curious if you can talk to this, because every week we have an incredible guest come on the show, and they share their stories, they share their insights, and I take copious amounts of notes. and go back to the team and we have a conversation about how we can run our e-com businesses better. And so, here I am, a bit like you. I run my own e-commerce business. I have my own agency. I'm an e-commerce coach. We have e-commerce cohort, the group. I have clients all over the world. And I still struggle with this concept of being an expert, because an expert feels like I've achieved something, whereas actually I think I'm more of a learner, that actually there's still so much to learn, because everything moves so quickly in this industry. And part of the way I do my learning is to do these shows, right? To talk to people like you.
Yeah, I think that's right. I'm kind of a book nerd. I like books. I like audiobooks in particular. So I go on long walks and listen to audiobooks. And at one point, I'd kind of heard on a podcast or somewhere else, it's like, by the time something makes it in a book, it's almost stale this day and age, right? Like if it's an evergreen thing, if it's a timeless principle, if it's, the Stoics and things like that, that's one thing.
Yeah.
But like to your point of, these platforms are changing all the time. The economy's changing all the time. Like this is a big macro picture that's quite complex. I think talking to people in the trenches is really how you keep up to date on what's going on. And so I had another agency owner. People always kind of jock me too on my podcast, like, are you getting business from that? What's the deal on this? Or kind of bottom line on it? And I'm like, hey, this is, we're just over a year into it. I'm meeting all kinds of great people. I'm learning a lot, or, building relationships and things like that. To me, I'm like, that's almost not the point. Even if we never did, if we weren't, I think I would keep doing it, because it's engaging in this way that the other parts of our work are not. And like you said, we're always picking up new pieces, new thoughts, new ideas that are hot off the press, totally fresh, things that people are trying right now and that are working in the wild. I don't see what, to me, it's like, I'm never not going to have a podcast. How about you?
Oh, I'm exactly the same. I started this. We started the e-commerce podcast in the early days. It was called the Curiosity Podcast. I don't know why we called it. Well, actually, our agency at the time was called Curious, spelt with a K, because we wanted to be quirky, and so we called it the Curiosity Podcast. We ended up changing it to the e-commerce podcast because it just made an awful lot more sense. But I remember that, and I tell the story often. We had an occasional guest the first sort of 19, 20 episodes. But the majority of them was just me talking to a microphone about what I know about e-commerce. And I remember saying to Sadaf, who's the show's producer and been with me for a while, she's just an adorable person. And I remember saying to Sadaf, I'm just getting bored of the sound of my own voice, if I'm honest. I'm just like, and so we started interviewing people. And at first we were like, how in the world do we get people to come on the show? We were hustling, I was calling all the contacts out. Do you want to come on the show? They're like, no, not really. No, come on, you really do. And we had to really work hard the first few seasons to get guests on the show. Whereas now I think we're 140, 150 episodes, somewhere around there. And we have a wait list as long as your arm to come onto the show, because people now want to come on it, right? It's one of those things that it's... And I look at the downloads occasionally. I don't look at them every week. Maybe, if I'm honest with you, every 6 months. Unlike e-commerce stats, I don't ever really pay attention to my podcast stats, because it is what it is. I'm doing this mainly for conversation, to meet interesting people, to learn stuff. The downloads are kind of, they're great, but they're secondary, if that makes sense. And I think back now, and I just think back to some of the people that we've had on the show. And I thought, what a learning experience. So I absolutely would keep doing it, even if there was no work that came out of it, And I think I'm hoping, listening, you'll be able to do it, listeners, you'll be able to tell me if I'm wrong. I'm hoping that comes across, that actually it's a passion project, for want of a better expression, rather than a profit project. But I make money out of it in so many ways, but it's the passion thing first. But yes, so like you, I would keep doing it, and I would definitely enjoy every episode. Yeah.
I think people can tell, like if you love it, if you're doing it for the right reasons, that comes through, and that's part of why it's such an intimate medium too. Of just people can hear your voice, they hear that authenticity. I think there's a lot of questions about AI and what's going to happen and what are humans going to be doing, and I think we're on to something here, even though. AI is going to be doing more and more and more. It's like that what's the human piece? Like I think we've got our thumb on it somewhere here. So we gotta keep it rocking.
Yeah, absolutely. Because for me, it's all about conversation, meaningful conversation. That's what I say to people all the time. It's all about meaningful conversation. And AI will never be able to have meaningful conversation. It may at some point be so clever that it can predict what you're going to say, what I'm going to say, and write the whole thing, and even create its own podcast. But it's not a meaningful conversation. It's not got that humanity behind it. But yeah, fascinating. Absolutely. Wow, it's interesting. You've been going a year already. Happy birthday.
Thank you. Yeah, it's, I don't know about you. To me, the logistics of it and stuff really took a while to get lined up. And like you said, you've got to have a helper because you're busy running an agency. So once I got a good production assistant, I think things moved a lot faster.
Yeah, and I think there's a confidence as well, isn't there? And I've been in podcasts since 2012. 2012, we did our first ever podcast. The e-commerce podcast was not our first podcast. In fact, our first podcast was called Jersey FM. Because our company was called Jersey Beauty Company. In fact, I think I still own the domain name jersey.fm. We obviously don't do the podcast anymore, that business I sold. And it was absolutely fascinating. It was one of those things where there was just three of us stood in a room with microphones and an old-fashioned sound desk. And we just started talking about things to do with the beauty industry. And so it actually did wonders for our business. And I think if you're listening to this and you're an e-commerce business wondering, should I do a podcast? Honestly, you probably should. I think there's some strategy to think through. But I think as a form of marketing, we totally didn't plan to talk about this, Eagan. I appreciate this. But as a form of marketing, I think it's quite fascinating. Like you say, deeply intimate, deeply personal medium of communication.
Yeah, I'm so curious to know more about that. But it sounds like every time you've done it, it's worth it. Is there year 1, 2, or 3? Is there like a time that people need to hang on to make sure you make it this far to really see the results? How do you think about the results?
I think you have to define. Let's go into this a little bit. So I wear two hats. I have a full disclosure to everybody listening. I do have two hats. One hat is e-commerce, and the other hat is podcasting. So we have a podcast agency. 90% of people that do podcasts stop before the 10th episode. So if you get past 10 episodes, you're ahead of 90% of podcasts already. If you get through, I think, episode 20, you're ahead of most people. And with podcasting, the thing is about consistency. And do it as a passion project rather than focusing on the download numbers would be my advice, because then it's authentic and people will listen into it. But yeah, I think if you're going to do it, I mean, you've been doing it a year, you've got in the rhythm, you've got a system. There's no reason not to keep doing it. There genuinely isn't.
Thank you. Yeah. We'll be crossing the 100 episode mark here. And I know, like you're saying, you hear those things, you're like, just keep going. That's the piece. Yeah. And it seems like you have to be, who's ever doing it, you got to be genuinely, you have to be genuinely interested in what you're talking about, or you're not going to stick with it, or that's going to come through, right?
Yeah, and I think actually that's true for any form of marketing, isn't it? So, I mean, bringing it back to your system, your strategy. One of the things that you mentioned was copywriting, right? So, and you go back to the pictures that you had originally, you could see the oil painting, but as soon as you switched it around, there's a bit of quirkiness, there's a bit of personality, there's a bit of passion you can feel in those images. You can feel that in the copywriting. And this is where I think, and Eagan, maybe you can share your thoughts on this, but this for me is how, what I call the digital Davids, David and Goliath, the story. It's like, how do I, as a digital David, a small e-commerce entrepreneur, take on Goliath? How do I do that? And I think you do it with that type of thing. Amazon, you'll never beat Amazon at the commodity selling because it's massive. It's had billions to invest in. It's got algorithms that have figured stuff out way more smarter than I have. And so I'm not going to beat it on that. But what Amazon can't do is it can't be me. It can't bring my voice. It can't bring my story. If I've got a podcast, it can't bring that. There's that whole personality side of things which get lost very, very quickly on Amazon. And I think that passion, that personality has to come through in all forms, not just podcasting, but in all forms of communication. And that's how ultimately you'll beat Amazon at their own game, I think.
Pretty interesting. We need that human side in all your marketing. It sounds like each channel of make sure a real human's touching that and thinking through, are we connecting with the humans on the other side on their device?
Yeah, I think you have to, don't you? And I think it's a super powerful thing because this is one of the I know you can go to AI, you can go into ChatGPT, and you can go write me an Instagram thing about this, right? Or I can give ChatGPT the transcript from our conversation and go write me a blog post, and it's good because it's quick. But if that's all I ever do, it's also lazy, and I think people spot lazy. Because every blog post will start sounding not like the next one, because ChatGPT is always sounding like the next. So I think you have to look at it, you have to edit it, you have to go into it, you have to bring your voice, your personality, and go, well, actually, I wouldn't say that. I would say this, so I need to swap that out. So, I definitely.
And that was true. That was true before ChatGPT, right? Like, you could hire inexpensive VAs in the developing world. You could get cheap blog posts. Like it's not different in kind from that. It's faster, it's cheaper, but it's kind of the same piece of, you give it a B, right? Like it's it's like it's 80 out of 100. It's okay. And it's I don't ever want to be on record saying like AI is never going to be able to do this or that. Like I think it's only going to keep getting better and better. So I don't ever want to sound Pollyannish and say like, here's the human piece, here's the machine piece, and I know the difference. I think it's important to use the new tools and take advantage of them and see what they can do. It's sort of interesting with respect to Splendid Beast, because I knew, I saw more and more competition coming in, before I sold the business, right? And some of the competitors they just printed on canvas. It's not handmade oil, right? So it's like that piece of it's cheaper, it's faster in that respect. With this whole piece about GPTs of not just Chat GPT, but these custom ones that can do different things. There is specifically one now that's a GPT of make my pet a funny thing. So like it has already happened. It's touching us, but there's still this element of, but in the same sense that hipsters use typewriters and vinyls coming back. It's like
yes, so true. So true.
Like, what's the artisanal thing going to be? Maybe it's going to be handmade oil paintings that AI didn't do. So it's like maybe the down market stuff is fully automated and humans don't touch it, but maybe there's still this kind of like experience economy. And even again, thinking, what are the reasons that I buy? Maybe I'm signaling to the other people in my life that I hire artisans, that I actually, I'm in the same sense of, I listen to vinyl, I've got a typewriter, I write old fashioned letters on just for whatever reason, it's like that same sort of signal is maybe being sent of, I pay for real things from real people. I think the market could go in that direction too.
Yeah. I think you're totally right. And for me, having this conversation around AI has been really fascinating recently, because, like you say, AI is just going to get better and better, and it doesn't seem to be going anywhere. As in, it's not like we've all got together. The governments have gone like shut down everything that is AI. I mean, to be fair, AI has been around since the 80s in many ways, but. One of the things that is becoming more and more obvious to me in this whole field is the fact that if you are mediocre at something that AI can do, you have got a real problem. So if you're a mediocre graphic designer, well, why would I go to you when I can just go to Midjourney and get it to do what you would do, but it's probably going to be a little bit better, a little bit quirkier, and at least give me some ideas. The way you're going to stand out, I think, is to be a craftsman, to be that sort of quality person, I think. And having sold very expensive saunas for a part of my life, spas and steam rooms and things like that, I became very acutely aware that actually the mediocre companies were all competing with amongst themselves with people that had very little money, right? Whereas if you had something that was really high quality, something that was craftsmanship. So, and I'm thinking, the oil painting versus a screen printed painting. There's a reason why I don't, I could have a poster of the Mona Lisa on the wall, but actually it's not going to be as good as having the real thing on the wall, is it? And so yeah, I think you're right. And I think this is where, if you want to know how to succeed in the world of AI, I think you just get really, really good. and stop being mediocre. And I think you'll be really fascinated by the results.
And I wonder if part of your getting really good is using AI where it's appropriate too.
Without a doubt.
I don't think
knowing how to use the
it's
tool.
not. It's not about being a purist and saying I do everything by hand. It's sort of like know when to use the tool, know when to add the value on the human side, and be multiplicative that way.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I've got a friend who does something similar to the pets, but he paints houses using watercolor paints. And actually what's really fascinating is his technique for doing that, because he gets so many orders, he has to speed up the process. So he has to hand paint them. So he's spent a lot of time thinking about how do I make this process faster? How do I use the tools that I have, yet still create the end outcome with that craftsmanship? And it's exactly the same, isn't it? I have to know how to use AI. I use AI. We use it a lot to generate content. But the content that we put out there is, having experimented a little bit, it can't be the final content that the AI gives me, if that makes sense. There has to be that tweaking. So it's part of the process, but it's not the whole process.
It's the first draft, yeah. And I'm excited for some of these things. Spin me up a web page, spin me up a logo. I'm watching this stuff too, Matt, and I'm yet to say this is it. This is ready for showtime. In many cases, I say that's interesting, not there yet, and then I still hire a designer and pay them because we still need that quality higher, and so
we do. We really do.
I'll be the first to switch to AI when it can do it, but yeah, if it's not there yet, that's part of what we're bringing to it. If you've been in the game a long time, like what's good, you can see this is a good one and this isn't, and some of it's interesting right now, but I haven't seen it of build me a website, build me an e-commerce website. Here's the pictures. Here's the persona. Go nuts. Like it's not there yet. It will probably get there, but part of our job is to watch and see when that is.
Yeah, but by the time it gets there, here's my thing. By the time it gets there, when it can do that, somebody somewhere who's a clever chap, who's really good at what they can do, has moved on. And so when 100% of people can get something really good over here from AI for next to nothing, the guys that stand head and shoulders above that, who have moved on and innovated, that's where people like me are going to go to and go, dude, you need to do this for me, and I'm willing to pay you money to do it. It's that's where I think it'll be interesting. The whole AI conversation, totally unplanned, just like the podcast conversation, but it's fascinating. The humanity of marketing in a lot of ways. Eagan, listen, I'm aware of time, and that we've been chatting for a wee while now. And it's been a fascinating conversation, man. Listen, if people want to reach out to you, if they want to connect with you, what's the best way to do that?
Yeah, check us out on caravandigital.com. You can also connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm Eagan Heath, EAGAN HEATH. And if anybody wants to listen to the What's Working in E-commerce podcast, you can find that on YouTube or on your podcast player. So thanks so much for having me on, Matt. This has been great.
No, it's been fun. I'm curious, why Caravan Digital?
It was really kind of the rebrand of figuring out we're not just based here in Madison anymore. We're not just a local SEO agency. We got to go. And so it was really working with my team. They're young people in their 20s. And so we kind of looked at different options. It was a whole thing of the first time it was like go fast, but trying to go far, go together. And we went through a whole process, and that's what came out the other end of we're globally distributed. I've got somebody in India, somebody in France, and we're all about digital nomads, being digital nomads and traveling and taking advantage of what we can now. And so it all just kind of fit. We're on the journey with our clients. We're helping them bring their markets bring their goods to the market, and then we're also a global company as well. So that's the idea.
Oh, I love it. I love the name. I think it's just great. I think I like the name. I'm in the process of doing a van conversion myself, and so I just all that kind of stuff. I'm just now feel like I'm part of that community, if I'm honest with you. But no, it's great. Listen, Eagan, thank you so much for coming on the show, man. Super appreciate it. Love the conversation. Love the spontaneity of it, and love your insights, man. I love what you're doing. And thanks for sharing some great value, and appreciate you sharing the stories of the pet business as well.
Right on. Thanks so much, Matt.
Well, we will link to Eagan's info in the show notes, which you can get along for free with the transcript at ecommercepodcast.net. Of course, if you sign up to the newsletter, it's going to be coming straight to your inbox. But yeah, all the stuff that links to Eagan we'll put in there. And what a great conversation. Love that. Also, a big shout out to eCommerce Cohort, which enables you to bring this show. Like I say, it's the membership group that we run. If you want to find out more, great. We would love to see you in there. ecommercecohort.com. Prices start at just $14.99 a month, but obviously no pressure. Just keep turning up to the e-commerce podcast, listening to these great conversations. Follow the podcast wherever you get your podcast from, because why would you not want to? It's a bit posh, isn't it, for me to say that maybe, but I don't know. I don't understand why people wouldn't want to hear. Anyway, just in case no one has told you yet today, let me tell you, let me be the first to tell you, you are awesome. Yes, you are. Created awesome. It's just a burden you have to bear. Egan's got to bear it. I've got to bear it. You've got to bear it as well. Now, the e-commerce podcast is produced by Aurea Media. You can find our entire archive of episodes on your favorite podcast app. The amazing team that makes this show possible is the fantastic Sadaf Bainon and Tanya Hutzlak. Our theme song was written by Josh Edmondson. And as I said, everything is on the website, ecommercepodcast.net, if you want to know more. So that's it from me. That's it from Eagan. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a fantastic week wherever you are in the world. I'll see you next time. Bye for now.